when you facilitate a group, the alertness, the alert presence that does all the work, will almost automatically rise as you hold the space of a group, and there's no body doing it. The dimmer switch, the degree of presence rises, just as it would if you were challenged by a critical situation, a danger situation. The intensity, the alertness rises, and you feel it throughout the body. A more intense aliveness. And that is the state in which, as one could say, you're holding the space of presence. Presence is doing it, but we're just using language. You're holding the space of presence. The easiest way to hold the space of presence is when nobody is speaking. So the easiest way to have a group is to have an agreement that nobody is going to say a word. That's one way. That avoids many problems. But even there, the qualitative difference of that group, there will be a great difference in the energy field if there's only one person, even if it's just one person who is able to remain in the state of thoughtless awareness, of just being here. That has an enormous effect on the quality. And many others can be drawn, if only temporarily, into that state. And then to listen to a tape or for a little while can help also to deepen that state. And after listening, return into some stillness, and again you will see others are drawn, and then the field of presence becomes a collective field in the room. And that gives an enormous help to enter the collective field of presence. It has nothing to do with emotions, or as you sometimes find in meetings of a religious nature, where we generate an emotion. Of course, as you know, it has nothing to do with emotion. So to a pool, when humans meet in the state of presence, there is a pool, one could say, all language is limited, but a pool of presence. And each apparent individual can draw on that and contributes to that. It's a two-way process. That is also the sacredness of groups that meet in that field, because the field of presence is sacred, beyond religion or belief systems. When the mind interprets it, it could say there was strong Christ presence there, yes. Or Buddha nature, just different names. So, just the simplest gathering of that kind has a powerful effect not only on those people that are gathered, but also on the totality. And that it was no coincidence, because everything is connected, everything is part of a larger whole, that we had our gathering with almost 400 people for 1 week, last week. And it happened to coincide in space and time, both space and time, It happened to coincide with the extreme expressions of human insanity that were taking place not far from there, not far in space and time, very close. There was, it seems, an intensification of the insanity, and almost simultaneously an intensification of something else arising. And that was almost 400 people for 1 week. It was perhaps the most powerful retreat we've had. And before I didn't know, does a retreat work with almost 400 people? Can that still work? And the answer is yes. It worked beautifully. So the collective pool of presence that then not only draws out that unconditioned consciousness that is beyond the conditioned mind, but also feeds it. It's a growth happens there, of an arising, and then it emanates. And many who are even slightly open to it will benefit from it, no matter how distant they are in space. Slight openness, and it makes it easier for everyone in whom presence is already arising through this form. It's like, always use that expression, the flowering of consciousness. Something, a new dimension suddenly coming into this world. So the simplest group already works, meeting in silence, listening maybe to a talk, more silence, and then everybody goes home. That's one way. And if you facilitate it, you may notice as people arrive, your alertness rises. It intensifies. It's not a social occasion. Just as it can at this moment, as I point this out, what does it mean, alertness rises? If suddenly this door opened and a bear walked into this room, your alertness would rise, or it would fall, and you would start screaming and probably do the wrong thing, completely wrong. Or the alertness rises, or you're driving a critical moment, suddenly incredible alertness, no fear in it. I sometimes call it the dimmer, it's like a dimmer switch. The degree of presence can be just in the background, or it can become intense. And that is the intensity that Zen masters point to. And that's the intensity of just this. And if you move away 1 inch, I'll hit you with a stick, says the Zen master. So it arises. It's not consciously willed. It's an opening rather than you cannot try to be present, because all trying means you're trying to reach some point in the future. That's the nature of trying. I need to become more present. But there's not trying in presence. Presence is now. It's rather all mental noise subsides, and that arises. And there comes the bear into the room, and you look. And you're completely in a state of not knowing in that. At least nothing that the mind would call knowing, words or concepts. That alertness would be there if you were looking at a stunning scenery, very spectacular. And there's this expression, the word is awe. Maybe comes because people said, oh. So there's actually a word now, onomatopoeic, or whatever it's called, AWE. As the state of awe is that state of open, this is presence. There's no mind in that state of that openness. And that intensifies when you are in a group situation. The space, the spaciousness. Now, later I'm going to ask for from your experience, what you have learned already from groups, mistakes you have made, if there are mistakes, what worked for you, what didn't work. The next level is, perhaps at some point, words are coming out of your mouth without being drawn into mind identification, so that thought is only giving form to that which arises from beyond thought. No old thought, your viewpoints or your opinions or your beliefs, and I'm going to tell you what's right, or facile explanations. That all comes from the accumulated knowledge of the mind. And that applies even people who have suffered tragedy, people in recent events or in their personal lives, so-called personal. Some mental explanation that I believe it was Billy Graham, there's nothing, he's a wonderful man, but he said they're all in heaven now, there's nothing to worry about, all those people who died. That may be true, but it's a belief, and is he really meeting those people who are suffering?